I've been riding on a daydream.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out RV Daydream. And as I mentioned in previous videos, I'm going to be doing a tongue jack installation on our camper. Now, the tongue jack I have on the camper currently works fine. There's no problems with it. It's just I'm tired of cranking it. So I found a tongue jack and had it delivered here by Amazon via UPS. It's a little bit above and beyond what I need for this camper, and actually I like it so much that I believe whenever we sell this camper it might come off and go on our next camper, because it is definitely a good one. So let's go ahead and open it up, take a look at it. So here's the box it came in, and it's a monster. It was pretty long. I'm glad that they overboxed it. I did read a review about another company that sold tongue jacks on Amazon that did not overbox them, sent them, and I don't know if that's Amazon that did that or if it was a third party, but glad to see this one came overboxed. So here it is. It's a Husky Brute HB 4500, 4,500 pound lift capacity. I do not need that much. I only need about 3,500, but this was on sale and I wanted to get it out the door and shipped to me right away. I'll put a link here in the description that's going to take you right to this jack, and you can find out everything you need on it. You're going to see that there's a lot of reviews on this, a lot of high praise for it. Overall, I think it's the best way to go. It's got a couple of lights on it. That's kind of nice. It's got a feature on the back that you can hang your cord, keeps it out of the weather so your RV plug isn't just dangling down, which I always cover mine up anyways. So it's just kind of a nice feature. So let me unbox this a little bit further and show you what it looks like once it's open. So you can see there's a handle here that they give for manual cranking in case the electric jack fails. And there's the jack. Gives us some kind of lock washer here. Talks about how it needs to be secured. They also give you the bracket that I mentioned that clamps onto the post of the jack once it's installed, that you can put your RV 7-way plug inside here. Of course, your wiring that's going to the jack. And then here is your overload, your line in, line out. It's just a case you have some sort of an overheat, this thing will pop and you push it to reset it instead of burning up your motor. That's kind of nice. This is kind of cool. It's giving you a little bullseye level. I don't know how accurate that would be, but I guess it could be. And then the jack itself. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and open it up, read the instructions, which I'm a guy, I don't really like to do that normally. So I'm going to cut the camera off, take a look at it, and come back. So next thing we're going to do is get this completely out of the box. I've read the instructions. It's pretty basic. This thing has an internal ground, so whenever this gets mounted onto the tongue, the ground is the unit itself, so you don't have to run a separate wire to your battery. This is the power wire, and of course you're going to use that breaker to go between this wire to this breaker and then to the battery. Again, this is a safety circuit in case you overheat the motor or work it too hard. This will pop to save the motor. So I'm going to reposition the camera. We're going to get it pointed on the tongue, and I'm going to get out some jacks. I got to put my battery in, and let's get started on this. Hey guys, so I got the camera moved around, and I hope the wind's being blocked enough. I'm using my toolbox to help out with it, but the wind's coming from all different directions. This is the protection, overload protection, and you can see here that there's a nut that will allow you to put this through a hole and mount it. So what I'm going to do is set this up underneath the battery box cover to allow this to protrude out of the battery box. Now, I don't expect you to see this, but this says line and this says load, and the instructions clearly indicate that the line goes to the battery. The load goes to the motor of the jack. Now I'm going to make this as direct as possible to the battery. So I got a connector here that'll fit over my battery post, so I'm going to put that on the wire here. I'm going to crimp that down. I may heat shrink it possibly. And then I'm going to drill the battery box for this to protrude, so I have the ability to reset it if that ever happens without pulling the cover off the battery box. Here's what the deal is. The lid goes on the battery like this here. So you have to make sure that if you're going to put this either through the battery top, that you have room, or if you want to do it through the case, you want to put it down here so you have room. Now, since I already have a switch mounted on the other side of this cap, or this top, I don't want to put something else on this side, because then it wouldn't allow me to open this up as easily, because it would be attached to the lid as I lift it. So I'm going to put it down below the lid, and I'm going to put it right here on the side. So let me go ahead and do that, and you'll be able to see what it looks like then mounted. Okay, so I had to put it in the back because the lead that was coming off of the circuit breaker wasn't quite long enough to go to this battery terminal. So now it's in the back, it's below the lid, and I'll show you what that looks like. You can see that it's back here and tucked away and protected somewhat. It's got this rubber boot on it, so it should stay water protected, and if the circuit needs reset, I just hit that button. So now what I have to do is mount the jack and run that wire from the jack to this side here, and I'm going to do a heat shrink butt connector on it so that stays secure, and it will run up in the back of the battery box. And then these two rings, this one here will go on the battery, and then of course this one here that powers the coach. Okay, so what I did was I got a couple jack stands and I placed them underneath the tongue of the trailer on each side on the down legs of this A. If you want to, you can hook this up to your vehicle if you don't have those, or if you just have a single floor jack, you can jack it up that way. But basically what that does is allow this jack then to be lifted and no pressure be put on it, so you could take these bolts out. Now I have a ground bolt that is here, and basically what I mean is this bolt is being used for a ground cable because certain parks require that you have your chassis grounded at their parks, so that's always been there. I will replace it whenever I put on the new jack, but first let me show you how this one comes off. Once everything's supported, you'll get a 9/16 socket in my case, and pull these bolts off. These bolts are secured through the frame. There's threading in the frame, so there's no nut underneath that you have to hold whenever you back them off. At least not on mine. That may be different on yours. Okay, now that all three of those bolts are removed, and this one's hanging off into the air because it's still hooked to that wire, you just lift this out. It's just straight up. That's it. That's all there is to it. So I'll retain this in case I want to sell my trailer down the road and I want to keep my electric jack. I'll have something to put on. So let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit and shoot some paint on there and some rust preventative. That way, whenever we put it back together, we don't have to worry about rust on the new one. Okay, now every situation might be a little bit different, but in my case, my bolts didn't have washers on them, so I went ahead and got a couple washers for these bolts. Of course, this bolt does have a washer on it for that ground. Now, what they want you to do is put the jack in its hole, the new jack, and then put washers, these washers here, on your bolts, and then once they're on the bolts, you're going to tighten everything down and torque it 15 to 20 foot-pounds. So no real He-Man stuff needing to be done here, just enough to secure it. And these washers, whenever you see these on anything, all this is to break the paint so you get a good ground to whatever you're mounting. And in this case, the jack, like I said, it has an internal ground, so it's going to basically ground itself through its mounting bolts. But the way it does that is the thing is painted really well. It actually has like a hammer tone finish to it, and you need to break that paint, and that's what these do. They're kind of sharp, and whenever you tighten it down, they're going to push down into the paint and make that connection. Okay, so there the jack is put in place, and the holes are lined up. The one thing that I checked, I was spinning this around, these holes are not symmetrical, so it can only go one way. It can only face one way. Now, if you felt like re-drilling, you might be able to turn this sideways and make it to where this motor would clear, like in my case, my tailgate, whenever I'm putting it down. It's going to make a difference on every vehicle, how high it is, how tall the trailer is, how long the hitch is. Some hitches are longer than others. There's a lot of different variables. So If it clears mine, that's great. If it doesn't mean it may not clear yours. Yours may just be fine. So let me go ahead and snug these bolts down, and again, I'm going to break this hammer tone finish with those lock washers so we can get a good connection. Okay, so now that I got them snugged a little bit, let me go ahead and do the torquing. Alright, so now that those are all torqued, we'll go ahead and move the camera back over the battery, and we're going to show you what needs to be done to finish the wiring out. I put convoluted tubing on this. That's what this stuff is called. Wire loom, convoluted tubing, whatever. And it's just for protection. And then I use red tape whenever there's a lot of black going on and there's a positive wire involved, because there will be battery power to this. So I don't want everything black to continuously be black. Sometimes people get lazy and forget that it's positive because it's the wrong color. I ran it along the frame. Yours is going to be different, but I ran it along something solid that wasn't going to move up inside the channel so that I don't have to worry about it so much. Now what I'm going to do at this point is get a butt connector that's also a heat shrink. Go ahead and make this connection with the butt connector, and then start connecting all the battery the way that it's supposed to, and then turn the switch on and have battery power for the jacks. Okay, so we got the connector done here. What I've got to do now at this point is tuck this in so it's not in the way, it's out of the way. Make sure that all the slack is taken out of this cable, and it's basically in the area that it needs to be at for the back of the battery box opening to be able to accommodate it, along with the power cable coming from the RV. And then hook up the negative side and turn on the switch, and then we'll test it out. And they make this foot for it so you can get underneath here and have it in the up position relatively quickly once there's no pressure on it. And then you lower this to the hole that you want for a quick extra few inches. And I'm sure that could come in handy. So let's go ahead and test this thing out. Alright, so you can barely read it, but this says up, this says down, so this switch is for the up and down, and this says on and this says off. I'm assuming it's for the lights then, and turning them on. And I can see there's little LEDs in there that are lit up. I'm sure you can't tell because it's way too bright out right now, but that's kind of cool. So let's go ahead and try the jack. So it has a limiter to it. Once it gets to its utmost position, it shuts itself off automatically. That's nice. So let's go ahead and, man, this thing's quiet. Holy cow, it's much more quiet than I thought. Oh, this is so delightful. I am so going to love this. Why didn't I have one of these a long time ago? This is nice. I am very happy with this. Wow, I can't believe how quiet it is. Alright, so I went ahead and ran this thing on. It's just a simple little strap situation that you use with a Phillips screwdriver. But now I have a place to hold my RV pin here, my connector. Keeps it out of the weather. Sometimes I'm easily amused, but I'll tell you, not having to crank that camper, that's going to be great for setting up the hitch, because I do have to make some modifications to my torsion bars. This is going to make it a lot nicer, so I can connect and disconnect, and all that's going to be done with a button instead of my hands. And I got those lights, those LED lights. That's kind of cool too. Yeah, I'm really happy with this. Okay, so the link's going to be down below for this. Click the link, it'll take you right to this exact jack. When you're in there, look at the other jacks that are available from Husky to find the one that you need as far as weight. This is 4,500 pounds. This will cover darn near every camper I can even think of. However, you might be able to spend a little less money and get one that's only 3,500 pounds or even 2,000 pounds possibly. You got to remember that it's not just the tongue weight. but it's when you're doing your weight distribution and you're lifting or decompressing the springs on your vehicle to get your lift bars connected that you're going to need that extra weight rating. So that's why I got a 4500. I don't plan on doing a lot of lifting, but the thing was I wanted to get it before this camping trip. I've been wanting this for some time, and now that it's here, I'm glad that I got it. Well, as always, guys, I hope to see you out there. Bye.